So our main objective for these lectures today again is to cover the concept of writing a query and also getting the information from a single table. So how to retrieve data from a single table. And this will lead us to the next chapter 4, how to retrieve the data from 2 or more tables. Then we start to learn the concept of join. We have, as we said, we have different types of joins. We shall cover them hopefully today if we have enough time. So the main objective here again, we're going to code select statement that require any of the language element presented in this chapter. And in this chapter again, we are using select statement to get information from only one single table. And what we're going to do is that we cover some of it already. So I may go a little bit, not really faster, but maybe we don't have to do too much examples or go much details if we cover it already. So this is our knowledge. We will surely know what is select statement. And also we are going to describe the use of column alias. For example, I can create a new column and give it a different name or alias name. Let's say I have 2 columns, hourly rate, number of hours work. I will multiply the 2 values together. The number of hours work and your hourly rate will give me your gross pay. So in the select statement, I'm going to create a new column. And that column, we can call it alias. I will name it a gross pay. It's not in the original table, but it's in the query. And in this case, I will multiply 2 columns value and put it as a new. Normally, we use the keyword also as. We shall see it. So this is the basic syntax of select statement. We have select. What do you want to select? The select list, for example, all the columns or only 1 column or only 2 columns. So normally select will go with the columns or the fields that you want to select. If you want to select all the fields, then we use the asterisk and wildcard asterisk. Now, if we don't want to select all the fields, then we have to name the number of fields we want to select. And for example, the first field name is last name. I will have comma, and then the space. Then the second name, comma, then the space, etc. But if I want to select all the columns from the table, then I'll just use asterisk. I don't need to list the name of the columns. So select always go with the columns you want to select. Then the from will go with the table, which table you want to get the items from. So here we say select, then select list from the table source. Then where is the condition? So for example, I need all the records or all the customers from New York City. And I have a field named city, or I have a column named city. The column named city, I will make sure that it's equal to New York or is New York. So if you are from other city or other states, I will not have you. I only need the where is where you have the condition. Or let's say I said, okay, select all the customers, and we have a field name balance, that own amount, balance in the account. And I want to select all the customers that their balance is more than $1,000. And if I need all the field, then I'll say select all from customer table where balance greater than 1,000. So the where will be the condition. Now, if you don't have where, you don't have any condition, it means you are selecting all the records. So if I want to select items, all the items from the record, then there's no need to have a condition. Or even if I put a condition, that will restrain or left some of the items that didn't meet the condition. So if we are selecting everything, then we don't use the where clause. Also, we can use order by. Order by is like putting them in order, sorting the items. And sorting. Then we also have a limit. A limit will tell us maybe the number of rows we need. Here, example, row limit, etc. So that's the basic syntax for select statement. And this select statement is for only one single table. So these are the 5 clauses of a select statement: select, from, and this will be in sequential order, especially the first 3. Select from where you have your condition. Selecting what type of column names, is it all or few? From what table? Where, what condition you have? Maybe you don't want to, I want to select only students from the student that score more than 80% in the final exam, or student that failed the exams. Then order by, you put the items in sequential order. It can be ascending or descending. Then we also have the limit of the rows also. So this is the first, actually this is the reason why I like this slice. Like, this slice is more or less like a hands-on slice, not a theory too much, but as we explain the code also, so kind of more hands-on. So for example, here we have a select statement. This is a very simple select statement. We want to select everything from the table name invoices. So we use the asterisk. Select all from invoices. All means we are selecting all the columns in the invoice table. So if you remember the AP database with the tables, one of the tables name is invoices. So that's why I said we should create that database. Then they will tell us to input some data, some values inside, or you can make up some values. Then from there along the way on your own at home, again, you can play with the commands in the slides. Most of all the commands in this slides to the end of the book is associated with the AP database from beginning. And this book has somewhere around like 18, 17 or 18 chapters, very many chapters. So that's the first statement for select we are seeing here. So I want to know if we have any question. Again, this is the concept of the quiz also. So this is kind of like we are reviewing the quiz now. That's the module 4 quiz. So if no question, let's keep going. Again, select all, asterisk means all the columns from the table. This table name is invoices. Again, if you do the AP database assignment, which follow the chapter 1 of the course textbook, you will see that if we have you should have the invoice table there. So you can even run this in your MySQL workbench. So let's see the next one. Here we are going to use a select statement, and it will retrieve some data for us, and it will sort the data by rows. So you can see here we have order by. So we sort the rows. And also DESC means in descending order. So from the highest to the lowest, not lowest to highest. So when you look at the result, you can see that the result here, the first record, we have $37,966.19. The next one should be lesser, so it's 26,881.40. Then the next one should be lesser than the previous, so it's 23,000. The reason why the record is in this, remember here they say order by invoice total. So I'll go to the invoice, which means we are going to put the items in order using the invoice total column. And it's descending order. Descending order means the highest value comes first before the lowest. We can also use the ASCE, which is ascending order. And that means the lowest comes first before the highest. So the statement here, they gave us here, we are not using no more asterisks because we are not using all the columns. We are using only few columns, like 3 columns. So here we list all the columns. Each column there should be comma and space, comma and space. So we can see the first column is invoice number. So here it says select invoice number. They have a comma and space. Invoice date, comma and space. Invoice total. From Remember, anytime we say from, the next will be the table name. The table name is invoices. Then we are putting it in order. So order by what column we are going to use to order the items. We are going to use invoice total. And we have two types of sorting, either ascending from lowest to highest or descending from highest to lowest. So here they are using descending. And when we run the query, is the result we have. The result should be one of 4 rows, but we have only the first 3 here. You can see this, the scroll you see here, which means. So the main goal is I want us to look at the command. If no question, then we keep going. Previously, we used asterisk because we want to select all the columns. This time we are selecting a specific columns, only 3 columns out of all the columns. So we have to list the column names with comma and space between. The next, we're going to write another select statement, but this time we are going to retrieve a calculated field. So with SQL, we can also use the arithmetic operations. For example, I can add, if I have a column, let's say column balance, and another column expenses, and I want to add the 2 values. I can write select statement, and if I call those 2 values, I can use plus between them to add it. Then the result I get, I'm going to create a new column, then I'll store it there. And that's what we are doing here. So first thing we do, we're going to select some few columns. First, select the column list. Why we are listing the column? Because we are not using all the columns. So we select the invoice ID, invoice total, credit total, but this is the trick now. Credit, first we select the invoice ID, the invoice total, which will appear as it is. But the next one, we select the credit total and then payment total. We add them together, plus credit total plus payment total. But we are not going to use their columns. So we have as total credits. So when we look the result here, we see that the 3rd column is called total credit. It's not credit total or payment total, but rather total credit. Because we get the first invoice ID, which is still the 1st column here. The 2nd column is invoice total, we still have it here. Then the 3rd column is credit total plus payment total. The answer we get is we save it in total credit column, so as total credits. Okay, so if no question, let's keep going. So here we are selecting the items from invoices table. We have a condition here. We are going to select this record only if the record invoice ID is 17. So if no question, we keep going. So the next is select statement that will retrieve all invoices between given table and given dates. So when we say between, the first thing will come to my head is to use the end. So maybe January 5th and January 10th, which means from 5th to 10th. So here again, select statement that will retrieve all invoices between given dates. So we have our select statement, and we are selecting the first column, invoice number, the 2nd column, invoice date, the 3rd column, invoice total, from the table name invoices. The condition is where the invoice date between, so this is a condition, the invoice date is between 2018 June 1st and 2018 June 30th. So in the interval will be roughly 1 month from 1st June to 30th June 2018. So that means any invoice date between that 1 month period, 1st June to 30th June, we will get the information. And when we get the information, we want to put all the items in order by using the invoice date. Okay, so if no question, let's go. So another is select statement that returns an empty result set. So we have a select invoice number, invoice date, invoice total from invoices, where the invoice total is greater than 50,000. So the reason why this result will be 0 is because we don't have any invoice total that is greater than 50,000. So next will be the expanded syntax for the select clause. You can expand it. So we have select, and we are going to select all the districts. So again, select all distance, and then we have the column specification as whatever the column result is. And we can have as many column specification as we want. Here we have an example of 2. So here we say there are 4 ways to code the column specifications. For example, all columns in a base table, or column name in a base table, or we can do calculations, also functions. So let's see how we can code the column specifications. So we say the column specification that use the base table values. The asterisk is used to retrieve all the columns. So here the column names are used to retrieve the specific columns. Example, we have select. The column name is vendor name, vendor city, and vendor state. So as we said, asterisk is used to retrieve everything. Then if we don't want to retrieve everything, then we have to list the columns that we need with comma and space between them. Also, we have the column specification that also use calculated values. So as we said earlier, we can use arithmetic operations in SQL scripts. So example here, select invoice total minus payment total minus credit total as balance due. So after I do the arithmetic operation, I need to put the result somewhere. So the result, I'm going to have a new field name, which in this case we call the balance due. Okay, so if no question, again, I'm waiting for a few minutes. I mean, few seconds, not up to a minute. If any question, I don't want to go too fast, so I'll just keep going. Okay, so I wait for a while. So also we have a function here we can say called the CONCAT. CONCAT can join the concept of CONCAT is to join something together. So we saw the first section, the arithmetic expression that calculate the balance due. So I'm selecting invoice total minus payment total minus credit. Then I create a new column named as balance due. So the name is balance due. The answer we get for each calculation will go to a new column balance due. Now here we are using a function named CONCAT. That's to join. So they say a function that returns the full name. So you see we have a CONCAT, we join the first name and the last name. And we want to, the reason why we have a empty single quotation here is to have a space. So in computer science, a space is a character. So here I will have a single quote, then space, then another single quote to close it. So that when we get the result of this, it will give me my first name, space, and my second name. If I don't have this space, then it will be my first name and second name together as one word. So we use the CONCAT to join. So that's the next one. A select statement that rename the columns in the result set. I think we saw this example also. So we select invoice number, we change it as invoice number with uppercases to start, I and N. Then invoice date as date, so the new field will be date. Then invoice total as total. So here we can see the result, invoice number, the date, and also the total. So here what we're doing, we are just renaming the column. The column name, the first one is invoice number, but everything is lowercase. We change it to invoice number, but we start with uppercase I and N for number. Then the invoice date, again, we change it to date. Invoice total, we change it to total. Also, we may have a select statement that doesn't name a calculated column. Again, doesn't name a calculated column. So here we select invoice number, invoice date, invoice total, and we have invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. But we didn't name it as a column as we saw the example in the previous slide. So the expression here, as we can see here, will be our column name. So previously we used as, for example, I change invoice data as date. So when I do my calculation finish, I will write as maybe total expenses or something. But here again, we didn't have no new column name. So the expression will be the column name. So it's invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. Okay, so with the select statement also, as we saw a couple of, we saw only one or two arithmetic operation, addition and subtraction. But we can do almost every arithmetic operations in SQL script. So for example, we can do multiplication, which is asterisk, to multiply. We can also do division, which is single forward slash. Then we can also do integer division, which is div. Then we can do the modulus operator. Either we use the percent or mod. In Java, it's only percent. Some language like I think Visual Basic also use mod, which is the modulus operator. Modulus operator will give you a remainder of the values when you divide two values together. So for example, if I say 7 divided by 3, the remainder will be 1. So if 7 modulus 3 will give me 1. Then of course we have the addition and also subtraction. So let's see if we can do some of this arithmetic operation here. So here we have select invoice total, the first column name, payment total, second, credit total, third, and the fourth will be arithmetic expression. So the fourth column is invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. But we want to name it as a balance due. So when we run this query, we can see the first column invoice total because we start with invoice total. Second column is payment total. The third column is credit total. Then the balance due will be invoice total minus payment total minus credit total, which will be the balance due. And we are getting all this information from a table named invoices. We can also use the parentheses. Remember in arithmetic class or college algebra, if I have 2 plus 3 times 4, I will do the multiplication first before addition. And same thing here, multiplication one before addition. But if I put 2 plus 4 in the parentheses times 1 or 2, then since the 2 plus 4 is in parentheses, I will do that execution first before multiplication. So the same thing apply here. We can have, again, column invoice ID. Then we have invoice ID plus 7 times 3 as a multiply first. So if I have this, I will multiply 7 by 3, then I will add it to invoice ID. But the second one, we have parentheses. So which means I have to do addition first. The answer I get, I will multiply by 3. So if no question, let's keep going. So here also we can use the div, which is division integer, then also modulus operator, which is again to get the remainder of 2 values divided. So here we say select invoice ID. Also, we are going to select invoice ID divided by 3 as decimal quotient. Then we also have invoice ID division 3 as integer quotient. And also again, we have invoice ID as modulus 3, which means if we divide the value of invoice ID by 3, the remainder, actually, we will call that column remainder. So that's last column remainder 1, 2, and 0. All these items will come from table name invoices. And we are going to put it in order using the invoice ID. So here next we say what determine the sequence of operation. And the concept here is the same as arithmetic operations in college algebra or basic mathematics. So the order of precedence always the parentheses come first. Then we may have the exponent. From exponent, we have multiplication, division from left to right. Then we have addition, subtraction. So the order of precedence and also parentheses. Always, even if we have addition, subtraction, parentheses first, that will execute first before multiplication. But if there's no parentheses, then multiplication before addition, subtraction. So let's look for some example here. We start with the CONCAT function. So CONCAT function normally join 2 strings together. So how to concat string data? We say select. First column is vendor city. Second column is vendor state. Then we are going to join concat vendor city and vendor state from vendors. So you can see the result, concat the vendor city and vendor state. Now, next is how to format string data using literal values. So we have select statement, select the vendor name, then we concate or join vendor city, comma with vendor state. So this will be as address. So we can see in the address section, we have the vendor state, zip code, and the city. So let's see the next one. How do we include apostrophes in literal values? So here we have select, concate, vendor name, and then addresses as vendor. So again, here we say select concate, we join the vendor name, addresses as vendor. So next, the terms to know, function, parameter, argument, and concatenate. We know a function normally perform a specific task. So a function is a code that is, in this case, we are using a built-in function. So SQL also, we can write our own script and write our own function. But we saw the built-in function for sum, average, etc. Parameters are normally the information that the function will take, which we call the arguments. And also argument will be the data that go inside the parentheses of a function. And concatenate was also a function that we can use to join two or more items together. It can be a column there. So let's see the syntax for the left function. So we have left, it takes a strings and also number of characters. So a select statement that uses the left function, here we say select the vendor contact first name. So again, select vendor contact first name, comma, vendor contact last name, comma. Then we join concate from left, vendor contact first name, only one, and left again, vendor contact last name. So as initials from the vendors. So you can see that here we said left, the vendor contact first name, the characters from left, and this is one, so the first character from left. So if the vendor name is, as we can see here, is Alberto, and Alberto is the last name, then we have Francisco. Francisco is the first name, and I have a vendor, vendor contact first name. So the first name, and in this case, I'm using the left function in one. So I'll come to the first name on the left, starting from the left, and then the first character. So if, for example, the name is Charles, then it is C. In this case, the name is Francisco. The first letter on the from left is F. So yeah, F. Same thing applied to the last name. We are starting, so also the same thing, we can start from right function, which means we are starting at the end, the right. So this is the syntax for the date format function. We can have date format, And the argument or the parameter will be date, and also the format string of the date. So here we have a select statement that uses the date format function. So we're going to format the date. So we have select invoice date. Then we have a date format, invoice date. Then we have our format here, the month, the day, and the year. To be MMDD. The second, also we want to format the date, invoice date. We have it as DDMMY and Y, and also now. So that's the year will be 4 digits here. The first one is 2 digits here. From the table, order by, that's sorting by invoice date. Okay, so if no question, we keep going. I thought we're going to have questions here. Okay. So next, we have the syntax of the run function. So we can see the keyword run, what number, and also if you are running the number of decimal places you want. You can specify 2 or 1, etc. So here we use it as example, select statement that uses the run function. We select the invoice date, invoice total. Then we have the run. We are going to run what argument, the invoice total. So when we run the invoice total as nearest dollar, then we run the second invoice total with 1 decimal place as nearest dime. So here we can see the nearest dollar, and also the nearest dime is 1 decimal place. And with the nearest dollar, we have only invoice total. I'm going to wait for a few seconds. If no question. So far we are learning some few new command. Example will be the left, right, or round. Apart from that, most of the commands here we went through there. Okay, so if no question, let's skip it. So next we have a select statement that will test a calculation. So the calculation we are testing here is we have select 1,000 times 1 plus 0.1 as 10% more than 1,000. So the result will give us 10% more than 1. As, so as means again the new alias, the new column we are creating. So the column name is 10% more than 1,000. Now we have a select statement that tests the CONCAT function. So we have select ed as first name. So after that, we select William as last name. So we can see first name is ed, last name is William. Then we concat the left. So ed, left ed will be E, and it's only 1. So we need 1. So the answer here will give us William, select as first name, Williams as last name, CONCAT ED, then left W as initial. So you get EW as the initial. Okay, so if no question, let's keep going. Now the next is the select statement that tells the date format also. So we can format a date. Here, for example, we say select the current date. So that would be the existing column. Select the current date, and then we have a date format. So date format, the current date we want to format, and this is how we want to format it. So we can see the result. We have the day, month, and the year 2 digits. Also a select statement that tells the run function. So we have select the current date. Then we change the date format to current date. And that's the format as MMDDYY, or second one as DD/MON/2 digits or 4 digits year. So the first one will be our second column, the last one will be our third column. So next we have a select statement that will return all rows. So we say select the vendor city, vendor state. So if no question with this, then we keep going. So here we just select the vendor city column, vendor state column from the vendor table. Then we put it in order by using the vendor city. So next, we are going to use a select statement, but we are going to remove the duplicates. So removing the duplicate, we use the distinct, the command distinct. So here, select distinct means we are removing the duplicates. So select distinct, vendor city, vendor state from vendors. So if no question, let's keep going. And also we are going to sort by vendor city. So we also have same as any computer programming language. We have arithmetic operations, and also we have relational and logical operations. So relational operations allow us to write a statement whereby we can use, for example, if the balance is greater than $100 or something, we need to do something or we need to return something. So these are all the possible relational operators you can use: equal, less than, greater than, less than or equal, greater than or equal, or not equal. So let's see some example. So here we have a vendors located in Iowa, and we say where the vendor state is equal to IA. Now, next we have invoices with a balance dual, which is 2 variations. So here we have where invoices total minus payment total minus credit total greater than 0. Then we do something. And also we have vendors with names from A to L. So we say where vendor name is less than M. And also we have invoices on or before a specified date. So here we say where invoices is before, so you have to be less than or equal. Then we have invoices on or after a specified date. So the condition is where invoice date is greater than or equal to a specific date. 1st July 2018. And we may have, again, invoices with credit that don't equal 0. So the two statements here are the same. In many programs, for example, in Visual Basic program, not we have greater than and lesser than sign together, no space between them. Now, in Java program, we may use exclamation with equal, which means not equal. So yes, invoices with credits that don't equal. So both of them are not equal. Okay, so if no question, let's keep going. Waiting for a few seconds. Okay. So this is the syntax of the where clause. We always say the where condition is where we have our conditions. The where conditions always limit or restraint. So if I have a select statement with no condition or there's no where clause, basically it means I want to select everything. But anytime I have some condition or I want to select based on some condition, then we are going to have the where clause. So let's keep going, no question. So yeah, so we have if we remember, these operators are called the logical operators in any programming language. And normally we use the logical operators if we want to combine, especially the N and O, if we want to combine two or more conditions. So N and O are called binary operators because they need two conditions to combine, to compare. Now, N means if I have two conditions, all the conditions have to be true in order to do whatever I have to do, execution after it. With or, only one condition or both conditions have to be true. That's why it's or. And then the not operator, normally we call it, it's a unary operator. It takes only one condition, but it will negate it. So not false means true. Not true means it's false. So it just gives you negation of true or false. And also, we can use the same logical operators in SQL scripts. And also, the way we use it in programming language is the same way we are using it here. We use it here to combine two or more conditions for the end. So we know that always conditions are in a where clause. So here we say where the first condition said the vendor state is New Jersey. And not only New Jersey, but also the vendor city should be Springfield. We are using N. So this means both the left, which is the vendor state, and the right, which is the vendor city, must be true in order to perform some tasks after it. And also the or here, we say the vendor state is New Jersey or the vendor city is Pittsburgh. This means if the vendor state is Pennsylvania, but vendor city is Pittsburgh, we still get the result because only one has to be true. And then not is not vendor state is California. This means we want other states, but we don't need California or CA. So example of a where clause that uses the logical operators. We say where not, so that's a unary operator, negating. If the condition here in the parentheses is true, then not will make it false. If the condition is false, then not will make it true. So here we say invoices total greater than or equal to 5,000, or not invoice total less than or equal to 2018 08 01. So this means again, whatever answer we get, we negate it with not. So if it's true, we get false. If it's false, we get true. So the same condition, we can rephrase it to eliminate the not operator. So now instead of saying greater than equal, I'm going to say less, because that's what we negate. So where the invoice total is less than 5,000, and here we say less than or equal, so it will be and not invoice data less than equal, so not. So this one, it will be. So we have n invoice date is less than equal to 2018 08. Because here it's less than or equal, but we say not less than equal. So actually here we're supposed to say greater than. If I remove the not here, this means greater than. And if I leave the not, or I can remove the not from here, as we said, then I'll put greater than. Or we leave it, then we put this. So now we have a compound condition without parentheses. A compound condition basically means you have more than one condition. So here, the condition we have is more than one, but there's no parentheses. So which is also again correct. Here we say invoice date greater than 2018 July 3rd, or invoice total greater than 500. And also the invoice total minus payment total minus credit total greater than 0. So that will be our condition. And this is correct, and it's going to be executed in order. Actually, when we execute, we get 33 rows. Because in this case, we have or, and we have n. So normally n will execute first before. So the order of precedence of the compound for compound conditions, always the not come first, then n or or. N is like multiplication because all the conditions have to be true before execution, and or is like addition, so or is last. Now here we have the same compound condition with parentheses now. So when we have it with parentheses, it means the conditions in the parentheses will execute first before the conditions outside the parentheses. It doesn't matter whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So for example, here we have invoice date. Invoice date is greater than 2018, July 3rd, or invoice total greater than 500. So since the parenthesis is here, this will execute first. Even we know n execute before or, but since the or is inside the parenthesis, it's going to execute first. Then we have the n invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. Also, we say greater than 0. But the first condition we will execute to true or false. Then we check the second condition, true or false, then we compare the two. So before I continue, I want to see if we have any question. Again, we went through a lot of commands. Some of them are review, and some of them are new. For example, using the left, right, and some of the arithmetic operations. This is the first time we are using the logical operators also. I noticed that some students are coming and our time is going, but I want to mark the student before we continue to our closing time. So, 1 second. Kiara, Matthew, and Kenny.
I'm here.
Okay, so if no question, then we continue. So next is the syntax of where clause with an in phrase. So we know always the where go with a condition. So here we say where the text expression, it can be not. Then we have a subquery, so it's in a subquery. And we can have 1 or 2 expressions. So what we are trying to say is whatever condition we have here is here. I think this would be a good example to show. So for example, we say where the terms ID in, this means the terms ID can be 1, 3, and 4. Say 1, 3, so 1, 3, and 4. So an end phrase with a list of numeric and letters. We also have an in phrase that is preceded by not. So again, in phrase with list. So what this means, where terms ID, it means where the terms ID should be one of these 3 values. If it's only one, like where in 1, then I'll just write it where terms ID equal to 1. But because we have more than 1 options, or here we have 3 different values, so we use the in phrase to have all the possible. One of these 3 values can be terms ID. So the next one is also is where vendor state not in. So when we say not in, it means the vendor state will not be any of these states. It will be other states, but not California, not Nevada, not Oregon, because not in those 3 states. So using in means whatever you have the argument is one of them or is them. Not in means whatever you have after not in is not included. Those you don't have in that category included. So normally if it states, they want to say that, or let's say all the 50 states in the US, they are included except California, Nevada, and Oregon is not included. Also, we can use the in phrase with a subquery. That will be the next chapter we will talk about what is a subquery. So here we have where vendor ID in. So this is what a subquery does. I have a first query and I'm trying to get something. By the condition I'm getting, I'm trying to get a second query to see if it will meet the condition. So here, the vendor ID in 1, 3, or 4. Or the vendor ID can be, we're going to select the vendor ID from invoices where the invoice date is 2018, January 18. So any invoice ID that is 2018, July 18, is what we are going to answer with the vendor ID in. So it's like writing vendor ID in 134. By this time, I'm going to select the 134 using selection statement. I hope everybody understands. So this is a subquery because we may have again, this is just where. We know that in order to use the where here, we have to have a select statement. So select from where. So this would be like two queries. We have, let's say, select all from vendor, where vendor ID is, we don't know. So in select vendor ID from invoices, where the invoice date is. So we have subquery means you have a query inside another query. The inner query will execute first, the result to give to the outer query to process. So yeah, the inner query will give me the ID, the vendor ID I need based on the condition of the query and give it to test my outer where condition. So we have two where, inner where, outer where. So we also use the syntax for where clause with between. So between is like interval. In means is it among, is in. We have vendor ID can be 1, 2, 3. It's in 1, 2, 3 vendor ID. Now between will be an interval of something, it can be date or something. So for example, let's say here we are using date as example. A between phrase with literal values where invoice date between June 1st, 2018 and June 30th, 2018. So that's between the interval. And also the between can start with the not, which is just to negate. So for example, if we said where vendor zip code not between, that means it's not between these values. Other values outside this interval is the result we are going to get. Again, between don't have to be only time, but it can be anything. In this case, it's a zip code. We can also have say where the vendor zip code is between 93600 and 93799. So any zip code, let's say 93608, 601, etc. They are all between them. Also, we can have a between phrase with a text expression, which can be coded with the calculated value. So here, for example, we can say where the invoice total minus payment total minus credit total. The result we get, it should be between 200 and 500. So the code and the between phrase with the text expression, which is coded as a calculated value. So the answer we get here, we want it to be in order for the where condition here to be true, the answer we get from the expression, it will be between 200 to 500. Then the last will be the between phrase with upper or lower limit. So here we say where payment total between the credit total and the credit total plus 500. So if the credit total is 20, then it will be from 20 to 520, whatever the credit total is. So the syntax of the word class, also we can use the like phrase. I think we went through this previously. So the syntax can be where we have expression not or like some pattern. It can be any pattern. It can be a value expressions. And normally we can also use the wildcard symbol percent and also the dash. So let's see how this works. So we say the word class that use the like operator. So if I say where vendor city like SAN percent, and this means we want all the vendor city that start with S. So for example, San Antonio or Santa Ana, anything that starts with SAN. So here they say, for example, San Diego also will retrieve because it starts with SAN. San Antonio, etc. So here we say where the vendor city like, the first three words. The percent means any character that continue, any amount of characters. Another example here, we say where the vendor name like, we write compute with a dash. When you use a dash, it means any one character. Percent, say here I say San percent. If I use San with one dash, San Antonio will not count because I need a city with only San with one more character. It can be Sana, Sanu, Sane. If it's EU, only one character. So the wild card is 2 here. Percent means any character and any amount of character. Dash means any one character. So if I have 2 dash, I need any 2 characters. So here we can see we are missing only T. So first we need a computer or CompuServe. CompuServe means we miss only one S. But we have a percent at the end. So after the computer, I don't care what comes after R. R can be any amount of letters. So first we have computer word, then we have a CompuServe. And say the end we use 2 characters, VE. Percent can be only 2 characters, any amount of character. Then when it comes to the word, we use like 5 different characters, any characters for the percent. But the dash, we only use 1 character. So here we use only T, and here we use only S, CompuServe. So dash represents only 1 character, any 1 character, then percent represents any character and also any amount of character. Wait for a few seconds if it's okay. Okay, so we may also have the syntax of a word class with what we call the reg express or expression. Actually, that's regression expression phrase. And this we may discuss more in our textbook, different chapter. But in this section, they just give us a little bit introduction. But again, our time is going now. We have like 2-3 minutes left. So I want to know if we have any question before we get to the classroom. Again, one thing I mentioned is if you have any parts due assignment, again, do your best to submit it for partial credit. And also we have a take-home quiz, which is due on Sunday. So again, the quiz is module 4 quiz is due on Sunday, so you have to take it. So if no question, then I'm going to stop recording because of the copyright. I don't want to show the classroom platform on the recording. And as I mentioned earlier, if the recording is not big enough and I can download it to our classroom, I will do that directly. If not, if it's too big for the classroom, then I will upload it into my YouTube channel. Then from there, I will upload it to the classroom. So again, if I cannot upload it to the classroom directly, then I need to go to YouTube before I upload. So it seems like there's no question. So I'm going to stop the recording if no question. Okay. Then again, wish everybody the best. But before that,